The time has come for the Cobra to rise up and reveal himself.
Welcome back, my quiver of capitalists, to AP Economics, presented by Cobranomics, your all-American history teacher, gold standard of economics, le champion of classical liberalism, and sensei of supply side, Professor G here, and we are back, Queen Cobra Productions, back in black, and now we have Unit 7, Lesson 3, Foreign Exchange, and the exchange rate. And so for today we are going to take a look at what does exchange rate mean, the very important word of relative, and how do nations' currencies change value in relation to each other. So first, definition. As you see with this definition, there are many different ways to phrase exchange rate because the key words when dealing with exchange are flexibility, they are being exchanged for each other, and relative, as that exchange is taking place as one currency. Say we have all these euros, as the euros are being supplied for an American dollar, or vice versa. A dollar is trying to buy euros, depending on what is going on in each nation, what the citizens of those nations want, which we'll talk about, then the values of those currencies are going to change relative to each other. So the big thing about currency is there's a little bit, you just do immediately what is asked because you can get caught up in this circular logic. Just immediately what is happening between the relation between each currency in the event and scenario that is given to you, and then stop thinking about it, because currencies in their truest, most flexible form, the floating currency is relative to each other and should always be changing value. That's what creates stability between nations. So exchange rate means the value of one country's currency in terms of another country's currency. Another way to say that is how much of one country's currency does it take to buy $1 of another country's currency. So if you wanted to buy €1, how many dollars would it take to buy that euro? So for example, many years ago, depending on when you're watching this video, I guess too, that it would take $2 American to buy 1 British pound sterling, which would mean that in terms of our key words, appreciate, greater value, depreciate, lesser value, it took more dollars to buy 1 pound sterling. The pound sterling was appreciated in terms of relative to the dollar, or you could say the dollar was depreciated relative to the pound sterling, since it took more dollars, $2, to buy 1 pound sterling. Now the two are kind of more even, but for a very long time, the pound sterling had a 2 to 1. It took $2 to buy 1 pound sterling. It's a very strong currency. Or we could say, how much of one nation's currency does it take to buy another nation's currency? So for example, 1 American dollar, let's say $1, as a 10 though, could buy like 20 pesos, or whatever it is now. So that it takes, so $1 could buy a lot of the other currency. Actually, that's a Canadian dollar. That's a pesos. I'm not sure how much we have on our table, Queen Cobra, but we have a lot of currency going on. So, how much of $1 does it take to buy another nation's, how much can $1 buy of another nation's currency? So, if 1 American dollar where's my peso, can buy 20 pesos, we would say the American dollar is appreciated against the peso. Or, the peso is depreciated against the dollar. As long as you are expressing the exchange rates in terms relative to each other, one will be stronger, one is going to be stronger than the other, or you could say one is weaker than the other. Those are both correct ways to say it. Again, for when you get a multiple choice example or you get a free response example, just think of immediately what is happening, because then you can sort of just go in a big circle with it. So just immediately, what is the question asking about the relationship between those currencies? Does it take a lot of one currency to buy $1? Then, like I said, with the pound sterling example, or even with the Mexican peso example, if it takes 20 pesos to buy $1 American dollar, the peso is depreciated against the dollar. When the American dollar took $2 American dollars to buy one pound sterling, the American dollar was depreciated against the pound sterling, or you could say that the pound sterling was appreciated against the American dollar. Inversely, you could also say that $1 American dollar can buy a lot of another currency. Look at all these coins, making it hail. And so $1, if $1 can buy a lot of another currency, we would say that dollar is appreciated against the peso or against whatever other currency that is, or against the yen or yuan. A whole bunch of currencies out there that the dollar is stronger against. Interestingly, there's I think the Swedish currency is like super strong. So $1 of one nation's currency to buy another nation. So $1, if $1 could buy a lot of another nation's currency, we could say, or even just $1 could buy 2 of another nation's currency. We would say that $1, that the American dollar is appreciated against the other nation. So many different ways to say it, but the main thing is, when talking about exchange rates, you were talking about exchange rates in terms of each other. What currency A in terms of currency B. Now we're going to take a look at, well, what makes currencies stronger, one currency stronger than another currency. And we're going to go back to supply and demand, but a little differently.